Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about tomatoes. So we're out here in my vegetable garden and fruit garden. So this section right here of my garden, I have celebrity tomatoes. And I pretty much exclusively plant celebrities as far as my larger slicing tomatoes go, because my husband's grandpa told me that in Houston, celebrities are about the only tomatoes he could get to do really well, to perform really well. And I have to agree with him. So as far as care goes for these tomatoes, you want them to be in well-draining soil, and I like to keep my tomatoes very pruned. So these are a determinate variety, which means they have a determined size. So you don't want to overly prune these or you will lose some fruit production. So as you can see here, I pruned off all the leaves on the bottom. So as the plant grew, it did have some fruit that came from here, and then after I harvested the fruit, I cut off that. And then anything below the first set of fruit, I try to cut off. That way there's nothing hanging low to get splashed with water, because all of that invites fungal disease. And it also is easy for little bugs to crawl on if you have low-hanging leaves. Tomatoes really need good airflow. So as the plant grows and gets bigger, you can see it starts to get a little clustered. So I come in and I look to see what stems are kind of fighting each other. So if you come in here close, you can see I have this branch kind of overlapping into this branch, and if there's anything here, it's kind of getting clustered. So I'm just going to come in and snip off that. Here I have a little bit of some yellowing leaves. I don't like that. I'm going to cut that off. All right, that looks pretty good. This one's kind of hitting this other branch here. I'm gonna snip that one off as well. Doesn't look good. Anything that's yellowing or looks like it's been eaten up real bad, just prune it off. I also make sure that I don't leave the things that I'm pruning off on the mulch. That just invites fungus. Come up here. We had a big windstorm here recently, and this entire tomato plant had fallen over into the ground. So it's pretty dirty underneath. That's why it kind of looks rough, but it survived. I just picked it right back up and it's doing pretty well. As you can see, I've got some really nice fruit on this one. These are some big Whopper tomatoes, and they are so sweet. Homegrown tomatoes are so much better tasting than the kind you get at the store. You pick them right off the vine and they are so good. When it comes to watering your tomatoes, you want to make sure that you don't splash water on the leaves. So if you're coming in with a hose, you want to come in near the roots. I currently have a drip system set up, which I recently converted from sprinkler heads, which was a really great decision. It took some work, but I'm really happy that we switched over, because with the sprinkler head, I had a lot of fungus issues. And so now I haven't noticed that yet. We haven't gotten super hot here in Houston yet, so it does seem that when the heat kicks in later on in the summer, the fungus kicks up, but we'll see how it fares this year with the drip system, and I'll let you know how it goes. When it comes to staking your tomatoes, it's really simple. You don't need anything fancy. I don't really care for the tomato cages that are smaller, because honestly, that thing's gonna end about right here, and your tomato plant is going to get probably this high. So once it gets over the tomato cage, it's gonna start flopping over. And so to me, those are no good. I've had the most success with using one single bamboo stake. These things are cheap. You can get them in a bundle at a big box store. So the way that I keep them staked up is I find the main branch and I continue tie wrapping it up the bamboo stake. This is some cheap tie wrap from the dollar store. It's all rusted, it's very old, and so it's obviously lasted me a long time. So I just take off a few inches. It's got a built-in cutter here. On this guy, I have one here, and he's starting to lean a little bit, so I'm just gonna push him up, get me a little tie wrap. I do it kind of loosely because we don't want to cut into the skin, and that's it. And if you come out here every few days and check it out, then you just keep tie wrapping it up. Now, on this determinate variety, like I was talking about, that I don't prune off any suckers, you're going to start having second stems and third stems come out. So with these, when they get a little bit too heavy, I just get a long tie wrap and attach it. As you can see here, I just tie wrap that branch to the bamboo just to kind of hold it up some so it doesn't get too heavy and fall over. Now, when your tomato plant gets just as tall as your first bamboo stick, you can have some clever ingenuity here and use some Gorilla Tape to tape two bamboo stakes to each other, and then you have about 6 feet of bamboo stake. That works really well too. This is another idea for staking your tomato if you don't want to use bamboo sticks and you have some wood laying around. This is just a skinny piece of wood. It's actually about 9 feet tall. I have it about 1 foot in the ground, and again, I just use my tie wraps to tie it because this sweet million cherry tomato will get at least 6 feet tall. And so if you don't have anything tall enough to stake it to, it will start to flop over. So this is a great staking mechanism. Another variety of tomato that does great here in Houston are cherry tomatoes. Almost any type that I've tried has done wonderful. So this right here is a sweet million variety cherry tomato. This is an indeterminate variety of tomato, and you'll find that information on the tag. So with indeterminate varieties, they can keep growing for an indeterminate amount of time. And so they will just keep going and going. And if you don't prune them and keep them under control, it will get out of hand very quickly. And I made this mistake when I was starting out, and I've seen a lot of people make mistakes writing on Facebook like, oh, I have so much leaf growth, but I don't have any tomatoes. And the problem is the plant puts so much energy into making stems and making more leaf growth that it won't make much fruit production. So the way to fix that is you keep it pruned. You're gonna follow your main stem up, and in the V, or the crotch of each one of these, you will start to see sometimes some growth. I keep these very pruned, so that's called a sucker. And when you see growth coming out of the little V, you want to pinch that off. So here's one right here. So in the V here, you can see a little bitty branch is starting to grow. So you just want to pinch that off. So that prevents a whole nother stem from producing. So you have one main stem. I do sometimes allow 2 stems, which I'll show you. On this plant right here, which is another sweet million cherry tomato, I allowed a second stem to come up here. Actually, check this out. This little guy down here is trying to produce. Nope, we're gonna cut him off. And you can actually take this and stick it in a pot of soil. You would bury it to about right here, and this could be a nice little tomato plant for the fall, which I will do that. So I have 2 main stems here, so that way every day I come out and I follow these 2 stems up, And if I see any suckers coming, I pop those suckers off. This one looks pretty good. This is a Husky cherry red tomato, an indeterminate variety as well. The Husky variety does amazing. I've never had any issues with it. It gets huge and bushy, and the suckers will definitely get away from you on this one because it's so bushy as compared to the Sweet Million, which is pretty leggy and spindly. But that's another Sweet Million that I started from one of those suckers that I let get too long, and it's a whole separate tomato plant. But this Husky one, it gets nice and bushy. The tomatoes get about this big. They're a little bit bigger than like your average snacker cherry tomato, but they're still delicious. When it comes to feeding your tomatoes, I keep it super simple. I use Espoma Garden Tone on pretty much every vegetable in my garden, and it's so easy. You just sprinkle some in the hole when you plant the tomatoes, and then once a month thereafter you sprinkle it right around the plant. You kind of scratch it in. If you have mulch, just sprinkle it around and water it in, and it feeds your plants so great. It's simple, easy, no fuss. I don't like to do a whole lot more than that because I haven't noticed much of a difference. This works great, so thumbs up for me. A couple of the problems that I often hear about and have with my own garden are caterpillars and fungus. So for your caterpillar issues, if you're noticing that your leaves are getting eaten up, they have a bunch of holes, sometimes entire leaves can be gone within a matter of hours, caterpillars. So the best preventative and cure for caterpillars is a spray with BT. BT is a natural occurring bacteria that the caterpillars ingest, and it then kills them. So it works fantastic, and since it's natural, you don't have to worry about using it on your vegetable plants. So I use that if I have caterpillar issues. And then to help prevent the fungus issues, I use neem oil. I usually spray neem oil about once a week on pretty much everything in my garden to help prevent any kind of fungus, but it's also an insecticide and a miticide. So if you deal with spider mites, mealybugs, things like that, it covers powdery mildew, rust, white flies, and we deal with a lot of that here in Houston. I see spider mites on, gosh, almost everything. So I really have to keep up with my neem oil spray, like I said, about once a week. All right, I'm gonna mix up some neem oil. It says to use 2 tablespoons per gallon of water. And I have my sprayer here. I'm gonna put 1 gallon. You can buy neem oil ready to use, ready to spray, just in a spray bottle. But since I told y'all I spray them at least once a week, and I have the whole garden to do, the sprayer is a lot more efficient. So if you just have a few plants that you need to spray, just get the ready to use spray. That's super simple. But this is the concentrate, so I'm gonna mix this up and spray my tomatoes today. Caveat to the neem oil. I wasn't thinking the other day, and I mixed up some neem oil. It was probably mid-afternoon. No, it was a little bit earlier, but it was cloudy when I did it. And I wasn't thinking about the fact that the sun was gonna come back out. And I woke up this morning to find my tomato plant, come on, zoom in on this, looking very, very sad and sunburnt, basically. You can tell the backs look fine, but anywhere that the sun was really hitting is brown. And this one looks the worst. This one is kind of hit. but this one's really bad. So I don't know if it's just because I did this, maybe I did this one first and it got the most concentrated part of the neem oil, but regardless, I am very sad. I think it will recover, but note to self, don't use neem oil in the middle of the day. Use it in the late afternoon after the sun has already gone down. That way you give your plant all night and the next day to soak in the neem oil, and it won't be like baby oil on the beach, because that's what I did. I hope this tomato care video was helpful. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions that I didn't cover. I'm sure I missed something, and so I really hope that this inspires you to get in your backyard, plant some tomatoes. They are a great beginner crop. Like, I started with cherry tomatoes. You can plant them in containers or in raised beds or in the ground. They're so easy. So just drop me a comment below if you have any questions. Thanks for watching, and go plant today.